Weeks of criticism and possible criminal charges against Rubiales after he kissed World Cup winner Jenni Hermoso on the lips after her side had won the Women's World Cup final against England. A prosecutor filed a complaint with Spain's High Court against Rubiales for sexual assault and coercion last week. The 46-year-old said he had submitted his resignation to Federation Acting President Pedro Rocha. He also resigned from his position as Vice President of UEFA's Executive Committee.
Certainly, it's not the fact that he believes he's done something wrong. He says he's talked to his family. The pressure, as you said, it was huge, not only from the state prosecutor, from the moment that Jenni Hermoso, the player that had the non-consensual kiss with him, went to the state prosecutor and said, I feel it's been an abuse of power. So there was that investigation. FIFA has suspended him as well. The government was trying to find any possible way to get rid of him. And even the federation were thinking, like, this is not right. Let's see how we can get rid of him. It was just one possible solution or one possible way out of this, which is resigning, really.
Meanwhile, Mexican club Pachuca paid tribute to Hermoso in her first game since the World Cup final on Sunday. Hermoso received a guard of honour from her teammates and opponents Pumas before receiving a framed jersey with her number 10 on it. Wales held out against a dramatic late Fiji fight back to edge their World Cup opener in Bordeaux on Sunday. Warren Gatland's side looked like they were cruising to victory in the second half, leading 32-14 at one stage. But two Fijian tries in the final 5 minutes set up a frantic finale, agonising for centre Semi Radradra, dropping the ball with the try line in his sights to finish the game. Wales face Portugal in Nice on Saturday, while Fiji play Australia in St Etienne this Sunday.
I thought the way that we'd prepared and the game plan, it took a little bit of time, and then we were, 65 minutes on the clock. We were comfortable there, and, we needed to control that, and then we gave away some unnecessary penalties and lost a little bit of composure, and allowed Fiji, and with the team that they got and the individuals they got, they can hurt you. So, but I thought we showed some great courage in certain aspects, and delighted with the result.
The defending champions South Africa opened their campaign with a ruthless display against Scotland after a physical first half. Two Springbok tries in 3 minutes from Pieter-Steph du Toit and Kurt-Lee Arendse saw them cruise to an 18-3 win in Marseille. The perfect start for them, and they face Romania off the back of their heavy loss to Ireland on Sunday.
This was a slippery one, I think, for us. You play the number 5 team in the world ranked, and they deserve it. And we all could see what they were doing in their warm-up games and how they pushed France and the big teams that they've won in the lead-up to this World Cup. So for us, it was always going to be a slippery one, and we knew it's going to be a grind.
Huge win for South Africa then. The opening Sunday of the NFL season saw the Dallas Cowboys trounce the New York Giants in the headline-grabbing results of the weekend so far. The relentless Dallas defence returned the Giants' first 2 possessions for touchdowns from Noah Igbinoghene and Daron Bland, and never looked back, eventually cruising to a 40-0 win in New Jersey. The Cowboys have now won their last 5 games against the Giants, and their largest shutout, I should say, largest shutout win in franchise history. And Tom Brady was honoured by the New England Patriots during half-time of their opening game against the reigning NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Brady famously won 6 of his 7 Super Bowls with the Patriots, but on the field, the Eagles would go on to ruin Brady's homecoming, hanging on to win 25-20 in Foxborough. And here are some of Sunday's notable results. There was a shock defeat for the Cincinnati Bengals, held to just 3 points by the Cleveland Browns. The Miami Dolphins outlasted the Los Angeles Chargers 36-34 in a Hollywood thriller. And the San Francisco 49ers, I beg your pardon, started with a dominant 30-7 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Find the rest of those results on the BBC Sport website. But that is it from us. Take care. We'll see you in a bit.
I'm at IFA in Berlin. It's Europe's biggest tech show where, in Hall 20, the robots are doing their thing, whatever that thing actually is. I feel like I'm about to have my brain operated on or something. The lasers are going to come out and suddenly it's going to yank the top of my head off and do some kind of Minority Report stuff. It's not just the bots though. Every type of tech is here for every part of our lives. It is a real spectacle with attention-grabbing booths, gravity-defying demos, and any attempt possible to make the hottest tech look extremely cool. It's definitely one of the more colourful shows that I get to go to. More of the rainbow next year though, please. Just a personal request there. But it's maybe the white goods that have the biggest outing here. Home appliances are well represented. And this is a place where they deliberately break an egg on your floor so they can vacuum it up again. Sticky roller though. Tell you what else is cracking. TV screens. Not literally, mind you, but the latest OLED TVs are big, bright and sharp. And they also turn up in the most unusual places. This could get in the way of shaving, if you ask me. From the bathroom to the bedroom, there is something weird lurking round every corner. And if it's your kind of thing, then this place can be fun for all the family. Oops. That's what IFA is, but what IFA isn't is a place where you are guaranteed to see the next big thing. Certainly don't come to IFA expecting there to be new ideas and new inventions on every single stall. I mean, they are here, but you have to know where to look. This is as much about manufacturers and retailers selling their version of the latest TV or vacuum cleaner or toothbrush or toy or washing machine. But one thing you can do at shows like this is take the temperature and spot the trends. What is everyone talking about this year? And the new boss of the show was in no doubt about the big talking points for 2023.
There's two themes that have completely blown everything else out of the water. They've almost kind of, zoomed out of nowhere, if you like. AI. If we're being honest, nobody was talking about AI a year ago. Now everybody's grandmother is an expert on AI, right? We're in this sustainability village, which is the, physical embodiment, if you like, of the fact that everybody is talking about eco, sustainability, energy uses on your washing machine, power.
That other theme, AI, is also something that seems to creep in to lots of product slogans. AI has been in a lot of stuff for a long time.
Yes.
How is it manifesting itself here this year in a way it hasn't before?
Yeah, well, I would say potentially it hasn't yet.
Right.
I think where it gets relevant probably for the next year or two, and then going forward for our large clients, Samsungs and Bosch, Siemens, Miele and those people. When proper intelligence gets into your machines and they can really start to influence your life, and I think there's going to be some revolutions in the home that happen once the power and the capability of AI really gets understood and built into the software and then the hardware of some of our home appliances.
Hello there. Thank you for joining us on this extended look at world weather. Let's first of all start off in North America. Heat has very much been the talking point just recently, but this weather front here is a cold front, and as it continues to push its way steadily south out of Denver down into Texas, it's going to introduce much fresher air. Slightly below average temperatures are expected over the next few days. We've still got heat across the west coast though, particularly across parts of Arizona. Few scattered showers through Mexico down into Central America along with the Caribbean. This is Hurricane Lee. It has intensified a little further over the next few days and will bring some rough seas towards the Bahamas. Over into South America, we're expecting yet more heavy rain in those flood-affected areas across southern Brazil. 150 millimetres plus likely. Behind it, noticeably colder with some snow across Patagonia. Over into Europe, heat has been very much the feature over the last few days. We're looking at some sharp thundery downpours across northern parts of Portugal, Spain and also into France. Gradually that will bring a slightly fresher feel, but a good deal of fine, dry, sunny weather expected through the Mediterranean, but not as extreme as it has been. The remnants of the storm through the Mediterranean still impacting parts of east coast of Libya and over into Egypt. That will bring below average temperatures eventually. By contrast, we've seen a weather front move through South Africa, a dusting of snow across Table Mountain as it clears east and introduce cooler air. Some heavy rain moving away from the Caspian, but largely fine and quiet across the Middle East at the moment. Temperatures not as extreme as they have been. We're looking at the heaviest of the rain across northern and eastern states of India, tied into the monsoon, along with Bangladesh, Myanmar and perhaps northern Thailand. Also a few sharp showers across the Kerala coastline down into Sri Lanka. Now, the rain will ease away from Japan. Still, those temperatures above where they should be for the time of year. Some pretty intense showers inland across China, and then further south of that we're likely to see some heavy rain across the Philippines, Vietnam, northern Thailand as well. Some of those could produce some localised flooding. Finally, over to Australia and New Zealand. We've got warmth spreading its way steadily eastwards and a good deal of dry weather across Australia. And after a recent weather front eases through, it's cooler behind with the risk of some snow showers for the South Island of New Zealand.
Modern life, the school run, work calls, inflation. Remember your lines.
Scientists are carrying out pioneering research.
The whole thing.
Okay, the whole thing.
The whole thing 3
Okay.
times.
Our brain never evolved for any of this, and yet here we are getting on with it as best as we can. And it's all thanks to our brain's incredible capacity to adapt, to learn, to grow.
I'm on a journey to understand the miraculous plasticity of the human brain.
The brain will even change its structure. The core, the architecture of the brain can change.
This is neuroplasticity. Once thought to be limited to youth, we now know it's a constant force in shaping who we are.
Your mind can change the very substrate of its own operations.
On this journey, I'm going to give you 3 hacks to help strengthen crucial connections and keep our minds younger in the process.
As fighting continues in Ukraine, join our team for the latest developments.
There's now a massive effort to rebuild what's been destroyed, but what happened here will never be forgotten.
See the headlines as they happen with breaking news alerts in the app and get the full story with bbc.com/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Rescuers in Morocco continue to dig for survivors more than 48 hours after a powerful earthquake. Nearly 2,500 people are confirmed dead. Terror suspect Daniel Khalifa is remanded in custody. He's charged with escaping from a London prison. China says claims a UK parliamentary researcher spied on its behalf are completely fabricated. The man is charged under the Official Secrets Act, but says he's innocent. President Biden leaves Hanoi after signing a historic deal with his Vietnamese counterpart, strengthening ties between the former foes. Hello and welcome to BBC News Now. I'm Regini Vaidyanathan. In the next few hours, we'll be bringing you fast-moving news, interviews and reaction. Well, rescue teams in Morocco are battling to reach people still trapped in the rubble following Friday's earthquake. Nearly 2,500 people are known to have died. 4 nations, Britain, Spain, Qatar and the UAE, are now sending aid. The epicentre was to the south of Marrakesh, along the High Atlas Mountains range. The struggle to get through roads blocked by boulders has led some villagers to keep digging by hand. Well, we can now bring you live pictures from the scene in Marrakesh. Now, these images show you long lines of people waiting to give blood in the wake of the earthquake. Of course, many field hospitals are also being set up in the remote areas, and there are many people injured as well, thousands injured in the earthquake. And so people there, as you can see, long queues of people waiting in the heat there in Marrakesh, ready to donate blood for those who need it. Well, our Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman's in the Atlas Mountains.
Well, miraculously, in this particular part of the village of Moulay Ibrahim, there have been survivors, but just look at the wreckage. I mean, these homes are built either of breeze block or they're this mud, brick and timber construction, not built to withstand earthquakes, and you can see the result. Now, in this particular home here, there was a family of 6. 5 of them were killed in the earthquake. Only 1 survivor, the family of the household. And we've been told by other residents here that he's simply too distraught now to return to any of this, and is clearly and obviously in shock. And that has been the emotion, the mood, as we've spoken to everyone here, that first it's the trauma of what came in seconds and has laid waste to this particular village in the High Atlas Mountains. But, you know, at the same time, they're having to try to cope and understand what they do next, because the rescue operation across this region has been extremely patchy and quite uncoordinated, according to many of the residents. And so too has the humanitarian aid response. At least the official signs of it that we've seen so far today are very, very few. Now here, there have been local charities that have been handing out soup and bread and tea for people, but that's been it. So you're seeing people, you know, having to try to cope with this, spending a third night out in the open in this extremely rugged and remote terrain. Now, as for the Moroccan government, they have deployed their armed forces. There have been helicopter airlifts, humanitarian aid flying in, and rescue operations being coordinated too. But it is the scale of this region and how remote and inaccessible it is that's making that so challenging. And at the same time, we now have 4 foreign countries helping to bring in rescue teams. The UK, for example, a team of 60 people and 4 dogs, as well as listening equipment. But it's going to be very slow and painful work. And at the same time, you have the survivors just wondering, in many cases, where their next meal is going to come from.
Tom Bateman at the scene there. Well, we can go live now to Rabat and join Christopher Russi, the Chief of Staff at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Thanks very much for joining us at what must be a very busy time for your organisation. Just tell us the latest that you're hearing. We've just heard, of course, that the death toll has now risen once again.
No, thanks for having me and us on the show. I think I can only echo a lot of what we've already heard from your colleagues so far now, but search and rescue still is of paramount importance. Search and rescue, first aid, transport to hospitals and other medical facilities and clinics, and that is going to be still for the next hours the most important. And for that to happen, you know, the authorities are clearing the road still, as we know, very difficult terrain. Very remote areas, and so to get access and then get the humanitarian aid to these areas is really important, and that is in the short term what everyone is focusing on. And particularly, I'm here in Rabat, as you said. I'm here at the headquarters of the Moroccan Red Crescent, where I'm working on coordinating aid and support with the Moroccan Red Crescent, our member.
And you talk about the challenges of getting to the people who are in remote areas. What exactly are you trying to do then? Are you, are the government sort of providing any equipment to help you reach those areas, cutting through some of the rubble? What ways are you trying to reach those people who've had no help whatsoever?
No, I mean, the work of the authorities is really, really important here to clear the way so that the aid can follow. And that is happening. And then that is also why more assistance was requested, right? So the authorities doing their first assessments realized that assistance was needed, and that's why we've heard that foreign government assistance is there, and that'll help clear the way also for again for search and rescue and for clearing the debris and the road so that the assistance can get to these more remote locations. That isn't the case everywhere, but that is where the efforts really need to be focused on right now to ensure that we're finding and rescuing as many people as possible and providing that first aid, right? And we have volunteers, paramedics from the Red Crescent, from the authorities, from other organizations that are providing this assistance as people are found. Psychosocial support, as you also said, one of your colleagues said, the trauma requires psychosocial support and other types of first aid. And we're continuing to work to provide that to as many people as possible.
You mentioned there briefly some of the kind of injuries that you're going to have to deal with, but just tell us more about this and what sort of equipment are you sending out with those field hospitals to help treat the many casualties?
I mean, for us, we're focusing us personally, as the Red Crescent and the I4C on having transport paramedics and first aid and transport to hospitals or to provide the assistance on the spot. And we've seen lots of photos in your reporting of that actually happening. Also, everything from providing some food, clean water. In the mountainous regions right now in the evenings, it's quite cold, so providing warm clothing, and this will only become more necessary as we continue. Also working on blood campaigns, which is extremely important right now. They've said that there's a shortage of blood, and that's just with the increase of injured, and that's to be expected. We've seen that in other situations around the world as well. The solidarity of the Moroccan people right now, and as we've seen just on the streets this morning, and as blood campaigns, and the Red Crescent is focusing on all of that as well to get blood campaigns going, because that becomes very important. And this is what they do all the time. Any disaster, any crisis in country, and that's what we're here supporting them to be able to do.
Christopher Russi from the Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, thanks very much for bringing the latest on those ongoing relief efforts on the ground. And again, thank you also for taking the time while you're extremely busy.
Thank you.
President Joe Biden has flown to Vietnam from the G20 summit to sign a new historic trade deal, bringing the former foes closer than ever before. Along with the Vietnamese leader Nguyen Phu Trong, Mr. Biden issued a joint statement warning against the threat of use of force in the disputed South China Sea. The comprehensive strategic partnership with Vietnam is a major relationship upgrade for the US. It's the culmination of a relentless push by Washington over the past 2 years to strengthen ties with Vietnam, which it sees as a key to counter China's influence in Asia. President Biden also announced an aviation deal worth almost $8 billion signed by Vietnam Airlines and Boeing. Well, here is President Biden speaking earlier at a dinner.
We know where there was darkness, you all found light. Where there was hardship, you found healing. Bring us forward. Bring us together. Bring us to this day. It's testament to how far our countries have come, but most importantly, how far we will go in the years ahead.
And that's President Biden there on his trip to Vietnam. Apologies for the slight technical issues on that. Now let's go to Westminster and the latest on that story that broke over the weekend, that a UK parliamentary researcher has been arrested under anti-espionage laws. He says he's completely innocent of claims he was spying for China. In a statement released through his lawyers, the man said he felt forced to respond to accusations in the media. The researcher was one of 2 men arrested in March under the Officials Secrets Act. Well, we can now cross live to Westminster and speak to our political correspondent, Ian Watson. Ian, there's lots about this story that we don't know. Let's talk about what we know so far, though, first, and that's this statement that's come from one of the men who's accused.
That's right. It's from the parliamentary researcher who was apparently, according to the Sunday Times, arrested under the Official Secrets Act back in March. Now, he hasn't said anything, of course, since the story broke at the weekend, and he has now issued this statement via his lawyer. He worked closely with MPs who were sceptical, to say the least, of China, who wanted to have a harder line taken against Beijing. And in a sense, in this statement, he's saying that his views aligned with theirs, that rather than being somebody who was spying for China, he was somebody who'd spent his career, he said, trying to educate people about the dangers and challenges posed by the Chinese Communist Party. So he's in effect saying that he was quite genuine in the work he did for those members of Parliament. Now, obviously, we've yet to see whether he'll be charged under the Official Secrets Act or not, but certainly this has sent reverberations throughout Westminster. It's meant that some of those people who are critical of China, particularly in the Conservative Party, are saying that the government should take an even harder line. They've been very critical of engagement with China. Rishi Sunak, of course, at the G20 met the Chinese Premier, and he said it was much better to be in the room raising concerns rather than, in effect, boycotting or distancing herself from China. Interestingly, true, the Trade Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, was saying that China shouldn't be regarded as a foe. They were a big trading partner. So there are those divisions in approach which have been highlighted, I think, by this case. The other thing that's been raised, of course, is security within Parliament itself. And one of 5 MPs sanctioned by China, Tim Lawton, was saying that those people who felt under threat by Beijing should have been briefed privately about this arrest rather than finding out from the newspapers. He wants to know what Parliament's doing about it. The Speaker will make a statement this afternoon.
And the Speaker, we've now actually just had news come in that it says the UK Deputy Prime Minister is actually going to make a statement to Parliament on the issue of China, and that's come from the Prime Minister's spokesperson. So it's now gone from the Speaker to the Deputy Prime Minister. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think there'll be 2 issues, really. One will be, of course, the political approach to this, whether to continue with engagement with China, and also to answer questions about who knew what when. So Sir Keir Starmer, for example, Labour leader, is saying, did the Prime Minister find out about this in March when these arrests took place? We don't yet know. We know, according to the Sunday Times, that some ministers were informed, exactly who. So that's why I think the Deputy Prime Minister will be under some pressure to provide those answers. But then there's the question about common security, how MPs react, for example, with parliamentary researchers, who is vetted, whether vetted properly. And it's those kind of questions which I think the Commons Speaker will also have to address in his statement.
Ian Watson, thank you very much. Let's say a quick goodbye to our viewers watching on BBC Two, and you're watching BBC News around the world and across the UK. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the news. The GMB union says all 400 Wilko stores across the UK will close in October after a rescue deal for the chain fell through, effectively erasing the name from the high street. It likely means redundancy for all 12,500 staff. The owner of HMV, Doug Putman, hoped to keep up to 300 Wilko shops open, but his bid collapsed. The NHS is rolling out booster shots of COVID and flu vaccines to older people living in care homes in England. The rollout begins today for those at most risk. Concerns are growing over the spread of a new COVID variant. There have been 34 confirmed cases of BA 2.86 so far. 28 of them were found in one care home. The German car giant BMW will invest hundreds of millions of pounds in its mini factory near Oxford to build a new generation of electric cars. Production of 2 new electric mini models is due to begin at the plant in Cowley in 2026. More than 4,000 people work across the 2 sites. Those are some of the other stories we've been taking a look at here on BBC News. You're live with BBC News. More now on President Biden's visit to Vietnam. Let's get more from Dr. Philip Shetler-Jones. He's with the International Security Team at the Royal United Services Institute. Thanks very much for joining us here. So first of all, just tell us about the significance of the visit, given that these 2 countries were foes at one point.
Yes, it is a significant visit. It's a very high level and well-prepared visit, as we can see from the joint statement, which elevated the relationship formally to really one of the highest levels in the hierarchy that Vietnam uses to describe its bilateral relations. It was a level previously reserved for countries such as China and Russia, with whom it had the closest relations in diplomatic, economic, and security affairs. And recently others have added, such as South Korea and India. But yes, it is significant and compounds really two trends in the region, I think.
And where does this lead?
One is the continued efforts and success, really, of the United States in...
Yeah, please carry on. I think there's a problem with the line. Do carry on.
Sorry. Well, I was saying two trends which we see in the region. One is the success of the United States pivot to Asia or rebalance and improving relations with countries in the region. And the other is the willingness of those countries not to be deterred or put off, and to reciprocate and enjoy their sovereign independence and upgrading ties, even when sometimes they're discouraged from doing so by other countries in the region.
You talk about other countries in the region there. Of course, all eyes will be on what China makes of this new strategic partnership between the US and Vietnam. What do you make of that? What do you think China will be thinking at the moment?
I don't think it's good news for China. There have been even some reports of shipments of goods on the border between Vietnam and China being delayed due to allegedly concerns about clearing the goods for sanitary and hygiene reasons. But the suspicion is this is a signal of Beijing's displeasure that Vietnam continues to get closer to the United States. But it's possible also that countries in the region are watching the news, as we all are, of changing figures of China's economic success at the moment, and thinking that actually it's a good time to be exploring relations with other partners.
Philip Shetler-Jones from RUSI, thank you very much for the moment. Do stay with us. I think we are actually having some problems with your line, so apologies to viewers for the slight break-up in that interview. Now, let's bring you some breaking news that's just come into us here at the newsroom, and that is that the train used by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to have left for Russia. That's according to South Korea's Yonhap news agency. And the Kremlin has now confirmed that Mr. Kim will visit Russia. Now, he rarely leaves his country and hasn't travelled since before the coronavirus pandemic. He will meet Russia's President Vladimir Putin to discuss arms deals. Now, there had been, of course, a lot of speculation about this much talked about summit between Russia and North Korea. But until today, we haven't really had any real confirmation. But there reports from the news agency Yonhap that the train carrying the North Korean leader is now on its way. We don't know any more details about the meeting, but it looks like that meeting, we've got pictures on the screen there of a previous meeting between the two leaders, but it looks like they're going to meet again, and probably very soon. So let's go back to Washington and bring our expert in from RUSI, Dr. Philip Shetler-Jones. So you've just heard that breaking news that's come in, a meeting between Russia and North Korea.
Yes, this has been reported over the last week or so, but it now looks almost certain that it will go ahead, and it will be an important, very closely watched meeting. People will be looking out for the content of the meeting, i.e. what are the terms of exchange that are going to be agreed and announced. Russia has been it's well known, Russia has been looking for more partners to help resupply its armaments to keep fighting in Ukraine. And it's suspected that in return, North Korea would appreciate access to some very useful Russian technologies in fields such as satellite and space technology, submarine launch ballistic missiles, and other areas. But I think the other question will be, given that this is such a high-level meeting and it doesn't happen very often, happening outside North Korea, which is very rare for the North Korean leader, will they go beyond just a simple exchange type relationship? Will there be an announcement of something more significant? And that would have implications really for the whole region in terms of the relations between China and Russia, as well as the countries who are very concerned about North Korea in the region, such as South Korea, Japan, and others.
Dr. Philip Shetler-Jones speaking to us from Washington for the moment. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to bring you another update on that story that's just come in. And it says that the Kremlin has confirmed that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is going to visit Russia in the coming days. I will read the rest of the statement. It says, at the invitation of the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, Chairman of State Affairs and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Kim Jong-un will pay an official visit. And they're saying that there will be in the coming days, so we don't know exactly when. We'll bring you more on that breaking story as and when it comes into us. Now, a London court remanded 21-year-old terror suspect Daniel Khalifa in custody. He's charged with escaping from Wandsworth Prison. Khalifa was arrested on a canal towpath in northwest London on Saturday, 4 days after he allegedly escaped. He was pulled off a bike by plainclothes counter-terrorism officers. The BBC's Anna Foster was in court.
Well, there was a lot of very visible security on display this morning when Daniel Khalifa arrived here at Westminster Magistrates Court. Notably, he was brought in a blue police van, one of the very secure vehicles that they use generally for terror suspects. That drove into the court. It was flanked by police officers. And again, even when he appeared in the dock, there was a police officer either side of him. It was a very short hearing, this one, where the charge was put to him. He sat very quietly in the dock for the majority of it, wearing a grey prison-issue tracksuit, speaking only really to confirm his name and his date of birth. There was some more detail given of his escape from prison at the point when he was apprehended finally on the canal towpath by the plainclothes police officer. The Crown Prosecution Service said today that he was at that point in possession of a bag containing cash and a mobile phone. He appeared to have bought a change of clothes. He also had said that the lorry driver appeared not to know what he was doing. This was the lorry that he is alleged to have escaped from prison underneath. Again, the suggestion in court that bedclothes had been used to fashion a kind of strap with clips at either end that he had used to actually secure himself underneath that lorry as it left the prison after doing a delivery. Again, all of that is part of the ongoing police investigation. There wasn't any indication of a plea given today. Obviously, it's worth saying that he was remanded in custody once again because he was already facing charges under the Terrorism Act and under the Official Secrets Act, a trial which has already been penciled in for November. So he goes back to prison now, and on this new charge, he will appear in court again in front of the Central Criminal Court at the end of this month.
Now let's bring you some breaking news from Libya, where reports say 150 people have died in flooding following rainstorms there. Now that's according to the AFP news agency. Authorities in eastern Libya have declared part of the country a disaster zone after Storm Daniel caused widespread flood damage at the weekend. Novak Djokovic has made history at the US Open. He beat Daniel Medvedev to be crowned champion and in the process equal the all-time record for Grand Slam singles titles. Nikki Schiller in our newsroom has more.
There were definitely some tears for Novak Djokovic after he beat Daniel Medvedev at the US Open. Joy too for the champion. It wasn't a simple win though. For example, the second set went to a grueling 1 hour and 44 minutes. However, the win does mean that Novak now has his 24th Grand Slam singles title. That means he equals the record set by this woman, Margaret Court. Now, after the BBC commentator Annabel Croft said Novak was something incredibly special, adding that he was superhuman. Now, after his win, Novak pulled out a shirt with Mamba Forever on. Now, Mamba was the nickname of the late basketball star Kobe Bryant, who was a friend of Novak's. Indeed, he wore the number 24 during his playing career. Now, Novak posted that image along with 24 on his X account. At 36, Novak is now the oldest male champion in the Open era. But at a news conference afterwards, he joked that he wasn't about to go anywhere quite yet.
Players come and go. It will be the same kind of destiny for me, you know. Eventually, one day, I'll leave tennis in about 4 years. And there's going to be new young players coming up. So until then, I guess you'll see me a bit more.
Djokovic's win means that he is now the world number one, and he has a chance to surpass that Grand Slam title record at the Australian Open in January. And remember, there he is already won a record 10 titles.
Well, that's it for this half hour, but we have much more. Stay with us.
Hello there. On the face of things, the weather story in Europe looks pretty quiet, but with recent heat and humidity, thunderstorms could be an issue over the next couple of days. Some sharp showers developing across northern Portugal, Spain, but as we go through the day, we will see showers becoming more widespread across France and the Low Countries, where we've seen extreme heat above average temperatures just recently. The Mediterranean is largely fine and quiet at the moment, and with a bit more of a northerly breeze, those temperatures are falling away, so we're looking at high 20s perhaps for Athens. Dry and settled across much of Italy and the French Riviera. You can see the sharp showers across the north of Iberia, and some of those will be an impact across the northwest of France. Some wet weather as well moving into Norway as we go into Monday and Tuesday. Now, Tuesday was where we really could see the sharp showers kicking off across the Pyrenees, also into central France. We could see a lot of rain in a short space of time, and it may well lead to some localised flash flooding. So we'll keep an eye on those. As you can see, though, once they've eased through, it's a slightly quieter and a slightly cooler story for the week ahead. Now, across to Eastern Europe, it's a similar kind of story. Temperatures will recover a little into Athens and the rain will ease in Helsinki.
Now showing on BBC Real.
Lost in the Brazilian Atlantic forest, off the beaten track lies the small village of Paranapiacaba.
Meados do século XIX, o café se tornou a principal produto de exportação do Brasil. Antes, o transporte era feito por mulas. Por isso, uma das opções da época foi investir no transporte ferroviário.
At the end of the 1850s, the London-based engineering office of James Brunlees was contracted to carry out the studies for the construction of the railway.
Ele trouxe uma ideia que era uma tecnologia inovadora na época, o sistema funicular.
Nós estamos a 796 metros acima do nível do mar. Nenhum trem conseguiria subir ou descer sem o auxílio de uma tecnologia ferroviária que segurasse esses trens.
Watch more stories like this at bbc.com/real.
I want Hip Life to be that good story that lifted black folks in Africa and all over the world, gave young people a voice.
It's part of being an actor, because I always say as an actor you can't be a control freak. You have to be willing to give up control.
So I like this idea of a live piece of art, and I just like this idea of making invisible visible.
Sometimes you can have really serious portraits, but you've got such a great laugh. I feel like I want to capture some of the candid nature of your personality.
Inspiring arts and culture on BBC News.
You're a raver.
Do I look like a raver?
I've got bass in a backpack. This is amazing.
Dancing for like 4 or 5 hours of a gig, you could generate about 800 kilowatt hours of thermal energy.
Right, shall we give it a taste then? It's my favourite.
We're really talking to the plants and they're telling us how happy they are.
It can fly, but it can also float on water.
Oh my God, that came by quick. It's all about augmented reality.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful.
Totally and utterly immersed in another world there.
Your Tech Update. Click on BBC News.
This is BBC News. I'm Regina Vaidyanathan. These are the headlines. Morocco's worst earthquake for more than half a century is now known to have killed nearly 2,500 people. Rescuers are still scrambling to find survivors in the rubble. Suspended Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales resigns after kissing a player at the Women's World Cup. The UK Home Secretary pushes for a ban on American Bully XL dogs, arguing that they're a clear and lethal danger. It follows a serious attack on an 11-year-old girl. Our special report from Bosnia as the UN warns of a renewed crisis as Bosnian Serbs threaten to secede from the country. After weeks of controversy, Luis Rubiales has resigned as president of the Spanish Football Federation. He'd been under sustained pressure to quit for kissing Jenni Hermoso on the lips after Spain's victory over England in last month's World Cup final. Hermoso said the kiss was not consensual. The Spanish football journalist and author Guillem Balaguer told me how people are reacting to the resignation.
Generally of celebration. At the same time, quiet celebration, because this should be the beginning of something, or at least the continuation of something. When the 81 female players decided not to join the national team next when they get called up, said they wanted the directors to actually be removed from the federation. They weren't just talking about Luis Rubiales, they were talking about systemic discrimination against women. There's so many examples. The assembly that decides everything in the federation, 43 members, only 7 women, and it goes on and on and on. So this is the beginning of something, but I'm sure everybody wants more now. The temporary president, Pedro Rocha, chosen by Luis Rubiales, we should add, actually can be there until September 2024, by which time there should have been elections and it should have been a new president. What's interesting is that the government wants to change the law of sport to be able to, how can we put it, manipulate or certainly have an influence, a bigger influence in a federation that, yes, is a private institution, but with public money and public interest, which means that they will not want anything like this ever to happen again, because it's been quite embarrassing.
Well, we can go live now to Calp in Spain and speak to my colleagues, BBC sports correspondent Nesta McGregor. Nesta, thanks very much for joining us. Now, first of all, just tell us what the reaction has been to Rubiales' resignation. Many people, of course, have been pushing this for some time.
Yeah, well, Regina, having spent the last few days in the country, there was a feeling it was only a matter of time. This is a story that has dominated the news. The latest development will no doubt amplify that fact as well. Luis Rubiales kissing Jenni Hermoso has kind of overshadowed the fact that Spain's women won that World Cup in Sydney just over 3 weeks ago. He's always maintained the kiss was consensual and mutual. She, of course, denied that and has since filed a criminal complaint against him. Now, Mr. Rubiales had been head of the Spanish Federation for 5 years, but that tenure is over. And many felt under mounting pressure he had no choice. Remember, the entire World Cup winning squad were among 81 players who refused to play for the national team if he remained as president of the federation. And his actions not only sparked a debate here about the treatment of women in sport, but also whether his actions were a reflection of what's considered acceptable in wider society as well.
Now, Nesta, have we heard from Mr. Rubiales in relation to this?
Yeah, well, he's defiant if nothing else. In a statement where he announced his resignation, he once again protested his innocence and vowed to clear his name. Remember, as well as possible criminal charges, he was provisionally suspended by FIFA over the kiss. Now, Rubiales said he didn't want to hold back the Spanish Federation any longer, citing Spain's bid to host the World Cup in 2030 as one of the areas that should be taken priority. But there was no mention of Jenni Hermoso in his resignation letter. I spoke to a good friend of Jenni Hermoso who says she's had no chance to celebrate what should be a career-defining achievement. She's been hiding in her house. She left Spain a few days ago, and ironically, just hours after Luis Rubiales resigned, she took to the field. She plays for a club in Mexico, where she was given, as you can imagine, a massive, massive round of applause when she came on as a sub in the 84th minute.
And Nesta, you've been covering this story for some time. What's been the wider impact of this on Spain?
Yeah, it's a key moment for Spain. I think this is a kiss that happened on football's biggest stage, but the impact has been far-reaching. And when you consider, Regina, that Spain are the current champions of the world, and in Barcelona they also boast the European Champions League winners as well. Yet the weekend that has just gone by, there was no domestic top-flight fixtures in Spain.